One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. How are you supposed to sell stuff in your content? How do you do it without feeling spammy or annoying your audience or saying the same thing over and over and over again and just driving everybody crazy? These are the questions that I get asked so much behind the scenes, and I get it for good reason. Most of you listening to this podcast, you're trying to create something that feels unnatural for how you communicate with people. So let me give you a for instance, right? Because I know people in this community that are creating podcasts about health and wellness, or you're creating about how you're going to teach people how to eat better for their family, or midwifery and being a doula. Like, there are things that you are teaching in your content or talking about in your content. And on the back end, you want to sell stuff, right? You want to sell coaching, you want to sell services, you want to sell digital products. And you're like, Krystal, where is the natural segue? Where am I supposed to go from I'm teaching, I'm the authority, I'm educating you to, oh, and by the way, I have something to sell you? It feels weird. It doesn't feel natural because you are really good at what you do, but you don't really think of yourself as, quote, the salesperson that is just crushing it online. And I get it. I totally get it. I actually wanted to share a story. I've talked about this before, but I will never forget back in, oh gosh, I should have thought about the year before I started recording this, but it was actually around 2010. We were living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in this little tiny apartment, and I was trying to find a job. And I was so desperate. It was like right after Thanksgiving, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go find a job. And I found a job at this local gym, and it was a big gym, like one of the franchise ones where, you know, they pay really well, and it was like had a lot of perks. It was super fun. It was super fun. I was like, I'm going to love this job. And I went in. And my job was to be a salesperson. I was trying to convert you to a buying client. I got to sign you up for a membership, and kudos to me if I got you to sign a year-long lease on this gym membership for you to come in every single day, and bonus brownie points if you paid in full up front. This is what the manager told me. And there were many other conversations. I will give it to him. He was an incredible salesman. He sold me that position so well. But in the end, I was not that kind of salesperson, because what I was told to do is sit down and make phone calls over and over and over and over again until I closed the deal. And guess what? I lasted 7 days at that job before I said, nope, not going to happen. This is not for me. But thank goodness you don't have to have that same approach in your content. And I actually have a special guest with us today that's going to share all about selling in your content, selling in your business, and just what it is like to actually have high converting offers in your business that make a difference. So I have Tracy Beavers on the podcast today, and Tracy's the CEO and founder of Tracy Beavers Coaching, and she has a proven track record in marketing, sales, and business growth. And for over 20 years, she's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs from everything from overcoming the fear of sales to growing their business visibility through organic marketing strategies. She's a public speaker and a published author, and she's been featured on top business podcasts and has been a regular contributor to one of her hometown premieres TV shows. She's the creator of 2 online business programs, Business Visibility Made Easy and Be a Confident Entrepreneur. And Tracy just shared so many incredible nuggets. I cannot wait. So without further ado, let's learn some sales tips from Tracy. Let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Krystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, Profit Podcast listeners, we have a special guest today. Tracy is in the house. So happy to have you, Tracy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Krystal. I am so excited to be here. I really am.
This is so much fun. So I feel like we've known each other for a while now. We've been in the same circles probably for at least the last 12 months. I don't know if it's been longer than that. It's been at least the last 12 months. I've seen your name pop up. I see that you are so engaged in a lot of the communities that I'm a part of, and you do something really well that we need to talk about. And that is selling, and just showing up and adding so much value. And it's funny because this is a compliment that I used to get in the beginning of my journey. So I feel like it's very aligned, and why we get along so well is people would always say, you offer so much value. This is what you do. And I want to talk about this because I think that you do offer a ton of value without expecting anything in return. So can you talk about that? And then after you explain that, tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that compliment. And I do think that's why you and I get along so well. For me, my nature is to serve. My nature is, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Because it is so much easier for me to focus on somebody else than on myself. And so selfishly, I'm being a little selfish that way. I'm like, it's easier for me and more comfortable if I can focus on Krystal and what does Krystal need and how can I help her? And, who do you want to be connected with and what can I do for you, than to say, I need you to buy something from me, or I need you to connect me with so-and-so or whatever. And so that's the way I've led. That's how I've been successful throughout my corporate career that we'll talk about, in marketing and sales and everything else. It's ingrained in me. It's the only way I know how to be. And so I'm glad it's resonating, but it also just makes my heart so freaking happy. I love people. I love to connect with them authentically, very genuinely. What you got going on? What are you building? How can I help you? Because if I can help somebody, that makes my day feel like I've done my job for the day.
Yeah.
And so I really bring that into building this online business. The way that I figured out I would be successful is I thought to myself, the more people I help, the more success I'm going to have. Because if we go forward in service, the money will come.
Right.
But if we worry about the money and we lead with the money and we lead with I want you to do this for me, that's not going to bring us the blessings that we're looking for. So it really just kind of comes naturally to me. I'm a talker like you are. I'm a natural cheerleader. I've heard you say that before about yourself. I'm like, every time you say that, I'm like, yes, me too. You know?
I love that so much. And I actually I'm curious if there's something that has to do with our genetic makeup, but I get a dopamine hit whenever I am standing cheering for other people.
Yes.
I'm the same way. I remember in the very beginning of my journey, I was really active in Buzzsprout's Facebook group. And that's kind of how I got noticed by the team there. They're like, oh man, she's just coming. She's helping these people. We're not paying her. Who is this person? What is she doing? But what was really happening on the back end of that was I was either going through self-doubt, what am I doing? Am I on the right path? Should I even be doing this? Or I felt unqualified, but I would see people asking questions and I was like, well, I may not know everything, but I can answer this person's question. And it's just such a rush. Is that kind of how it is for you?
Yes. The other thing for me is that much like you, I work from home. All these, podcasters and online entrepreneurs, we all work from home. There is nobody here but me.
Yes.
And I used to be out, in corporate land, boots on the ground, belly to belly, doing the coffee chats and taking people to lunch and doing the dinners and all the stuff. And then when I became an online entrepreneur and I started working from home, I was looking around going, well, this is lonely. And I thought, I can't go out I could do local networking, but truly because my audience is global, that's not a super great use of my time right now. And so my world started getting smaller and smaller to the point where my husband was like, are you going to leave the house? And I'm like, I need to do something. And so what I ended up finding was Facebook groups. There's people in there that need us. I need them, and so it just became this natural way of me networking and connecting with people. So for me, makes me feel less lonely when I can go into a group and see what everybody else is doing and maybe get a great idea or an inspiration about or learn something that I didn't know before. That happens all the time. In some of the groups that we're in, some of these people that are in there are such professionals. I'm like, holy cow, I didn't know that tech tip. Okay. And it also helps me be a better coach for my clients when I can really get that bird's eye view. Yeah, but again, selfishly, it's like I'm lonely and I need people to talk to, and this is how I'm going to make it happen.
I think that, us podcasters, we're a talkative bunch. We would talk to the wall. Literally, if you're doing a solo episode, you are talking to a wall, wherever your voice is eventually going to hit a wall. And so it's so good to hear that connection is just something that can be so powerful online. But what did you do before in corporate? Because I know you were saying that that's what you did before. So were you doing sales in all of your positions, marketing? What is your background in?
So my very first job ever out of college, I have a marketing degree, but I went to work for State Farm as a claims investigator, interestingly enough. And so I did that for 12 years. But then after that is when the marketing and sales really started. And then really during that time, I had side businesses. So I've always had something going on, just to keep me busy. My dad worked for himself. My sister and her husband worked for themselves. And so it's kind of in our family. Always had something extra to do, just, to keep busy. So after that job ended, and it ended in 2005, I was raised that you go to high school, you go to college, you get the job, you stay there for 40 years. Even if you hate it, you suck it up and you stay in the cubicle, and then you get a gold watch and a retirement party and a pension. And in 2005, that whole shifted because that's when corporations started to restructure and downsize and right size. And I literally called my mom and I'm like, I just got restructured. What? Nobody told me this was going to happen.
Yeah.
But that was the first pebble that was thrown at me from, I think, I believe God, the universe, that said, hey, you might want to think about doing something else. And then fast forward through the next 20 years ish, 18 to 20 years of being in sales and marketing in different roles in banking, in real estate, in title insurance, and always being charged with growing the market share, growing the portfolio. So I was growing $1 million portfolios on the banking side. I went into the title insurance company that I worked for, grew them 86% the first year I was there, just really having great success. And people throughout that time would come to me and go, how are you so successful? And how have you grown these companies so much? Just, like within the first 12 months that you're there. And I just didn't even know how to answer them. I was like, well, it's just sales. I just do it. And they're like, no, we don't like sales and you like sales and this is weird. And you need to teach us, how to do this. And so throughout all those years, and then along the way, more pebbles were thrown at me, some toxic bosses, some jobs where I felt like I was wearing a jacket that was just too tight. It just never, and it just kept bumping my head up against the swimming pool, of corporate America until I finally, it was, oh gosh, about 6 or 7 years ago, the pandemic makes everything blurry. So I think
yes.
7 years ago, I was working for, the final straw was that title insurance company that I had worked for. The CEO was going to monkey around with the commission structure for the people in the sales department and basically rewrite it in a way that benefited the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, God, okay, universe, can't do this. What do I need to be doing? And I knew that I had something inside me that was bigger than what I was doing, that I needed to use it sounds so cliche, to use my gifts and talents in a way that I felt like was more in alignment with what I was supposed to be doing here. And through some really great women in a mastermind I was in, originally I started out as a life coach because I was the person everybody always came to. I mean, I don't know about you, but if somebody got dumped at the sorority house or somebody's, they just got grounded for, whatever, people were always coming to me throughout my whole life asking for advice. What do I say? What do I do? Do I take the job? Do I date the guy? Do I get married? Do I get the dog? And so I thought life coaching. But then a few months into that, I was like, no, people are still asking me about sales and marketing. I need to be a business and sales coach. And so that's kind of how it happened. And I thought, I don't know about you, but I thought, oh, I'll build an online business. I can do this. I'm good at that. Oh, this thing is hard.
Yeah.
This building an online business thing is tough.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
And it's stuff that you don't learn. So I want to point this out to what Tracy just said. Building an online business is tough, but she said it earlier. She has a business degree. She's been in marketing and sales. I have a business degree. I've been in marketing and sales. Having an online business stuff is tough. It's not something that, you or I ever learned in school. The social media was barely even around. And it was it was just something that you didn't even I think I still remember the very first day that I had access to LinkedIn and I'm like, what is this? What are we even supposed to do on here? And I just remember thinking, oh, you're supposed to put when you graduated college. Awesome.
Right.
That was literally
and if you're looking
all
for
it was
a job.
for. Exactly.
Yeah.
It just was oh, okay. And I think that it gets lost on people, all the different pieces that go into a business today. It's not how it's always been. And I think that, you are so fortunate to have had experience before having an online business because you know how to navigate some of the human to human connection that you can really make. And those are the things that matter. Those are the only things that matter. You could strip everything else away. And if you can just get in a conversation with someone, being able to have those deep, meaningful, intentional talks with someone and figuring out exactly what they need, I think that this is so great. I was going to ask you, do you know your Enneagram number? I'm so curious about this. Have you ever done any? You're a 3. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Because I'm a 3 as well. And I have an aunt in my family. She's always been in sales, and she is, I think it's an 8. So for any of you Enneagram 8s out there, she is so direct. She is so very clear and what she wants, how she wants it to be. So it's, that's why I was like, okay, you're either a 3 or an 8. And I was really curious to see what it was, because it's just something, she has it, like the sales gene, she has it, and you have it as well. Do you know exactly what people qualify your it? Like, what is your it when people say, Tracy, teach us it, teach us the sales? Like, what is it really that people are trying to distill down what you do?
I think they're wanting to understand the words that I say. And the framework of what I do, and if there's a strategy behind it. And that's what's difficult for me sometimes to articulate, because to me, it's not a strategy. To me, it's not. One of the things that really grosses me out is when people say they have to use psychological tactics or sales scripts. Oh, gross. And I remember I was working at the bank, and there was this one guy. He was a commercial loan officer, and I couldn't get away from him fast enough because he would want to practice his sales techniques on all of us. And I was so grossed out. I thought, how in the world have you closed any deals? I was just like, ugh. So, that's what makes it hard, though. People say, what is it? And so I've had to do a lot of reflection on it. And I truly believe it goes back to what you said about the human to human connection with intentional conversation. And for me, when I try to help my clients and students overcome their sales roadblocks, I talk about, I want you to learn how to sell without selling. And I want you to take the word sales completely out of your vocabulary. I want you to take it out of your brain, take it out of the equation of what you're looking at, because the human being that you're connecting with is not a transaction. This is a warm, kind, hopefully warm, kind human being that's just like you, that has family, hopes, dreams, all the worries that you have. And by connecting with that person in that way and leading from a focus of service to that person, the sale happens automatically. The transaction will happen. So you don't focus on, oh, I got to close them and have them agree to buy my $4,000 thing. No, what you do is you meet them where they are, either in person or on Zoom, and you have a conversation. Because for me, I have to be able to sleep at night. So my one-to-one package is a $4,000 investment. And before I allow somebody to give me that money, I'm going to have a chat with them on Zoom. And I'm going to ask them, okay, I want you to give me the rundown of your business model. I want to see what they've been doing, what they've not been doing, what's working, what's not working. Because before I agree to take that person from here to where they want to go, I've got to make sure I can do it and I'm the right fit. Right. And that's the other thing that comes into this it thing with sales, is putting the other person before myself. Just like I talked about, it's easier for me to focus on you and helping you. But if you think about the more people you serve, the more people you help, the more the transactions will just happen. So I had a client that has an amazing ADHD practice up on the East Coast. And they help parents of children that have ADHD. And she was really, really blocked on sales. And she said, Tracy, I just don't know. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to close these transactions. And I said, well, we're not closing transactions. We're going to talk to parents. We're going to find out what's wrong. And then if you are their best solution, that's when you're going to share, hey, you know what? I've got this thing I want you to look at to see if it's a fit for you. It sounds like it will be. This is the detail of it. And, here's the price of it. Do you have any questions? And so, when I talk to somebody about my one-to-one services, it's okay, Krystal, you're telling me that you want to launch this program, but you don't know how to get through pre-launch to launch to post-launch. Your social media marketing is all over the place. And so you need a plan for that. And your email list growth is stagnant. And you need somebody to roadmap that out for you. Okay, those are all things in my wheelhouse. And I would love to help you if you think it's a good fit. What are your questions for me? And that's kind of the conversation I have is, hey, let's talk about what's going on. Let me see if I'm the solution. If I am, how dare I not say that?
Mm-hmm.
I've said to some of my clients before, my client who helps the parents with ADHD, I said, how dare you not tell them? Because what a blessing you could be for these people. And if you don't say something, you can't be a blessing to them. So if we take the sale just out, forget about it, forget about the transaction, forget about the money, forget about all of that. And just think to yourself, how can I help this other person in front of me? That's when it happens.
That's the it factor. I love it. I love it. Well, especially with you describing it as these are real people, because what I have noticed, and maybe it's the ads that I'm fed on social media. I get some crazy ads because I do content creation. So I get all these content creators that say all these wild things. I need to sit down and start recording them and do like a Mythbusters episode of like, don't listen to this, please. Right. It's terrible advice. But people get so sucked into the numbers, the metrics, the followers. And what I like to do, and this goes back to if I'm like in this stage of like, I need validation that I'm on the right path. I like to go into my locations. So if you go into Buzzsprout, this is my podcast hosting provider, I can see the locations of all the people that have ever downloaded an episode of my podcast. And when I see that, it solidifies it into this is an actual person and not just a number, because I can see they're in, Cypress, Texas, they're in Dallas, Texas, they are in Little Rock, Arkansas. Like I can see all of these different people. And it's just like, oh yes, like we need those reminders, because in the digital space, I think we get so caught up in you need more followers, you need more subscribers, you need more cash, like you need all these things. But I love how you articulated it was like, I'm going to talk to you before you even give me your money. I don't want it to be this like empty transaction where you're just going to be upset and refund, I'm going to have to refund your money because we're not a great fit. Like, I don't know if you could speak about that too, but I think that that's something that happens all the time is people aren't great fits. And then they're frustrated. They're mad at the person that they gave their money to. And I don't know, have you had any experience with that?
Well, I did with the very first coach I hired. And if I feel like if she and her team had been more focused on what I needed, they would never have let me into that program.
Yeah.
And to this day, I will never hire them again. And if anybody asks, I will not badmouth anybody publicly ever. But if somebody came to me and said, hey, did you ever hire so-and-so? I'm going to go, yeah. And this was my experience.
Yeah.
And so that can backfire on you if you're not careful. Bad reviews are real. I would rather have no reviews than bad reviews.
Yes.
And I don't ever want to frustrate someone to the point where I've made their life worse. That's not the point. But back to your point about how I love how you said you go and look at the locations. I was having a conversation on another podcast earlier today. And I love the way the podcast host said this. She said, there's a reason why boats and airplanes call their passengers souls. All those souls on that plane. And because we were talking about the email list and how it can just sound like, oh, I have a whole bunch of subscribers. And she said, I don't like to think of it as subscribers. They've subscribed, but it's people on my list. And I was like, yes. And then we started talking about how they're souls on your list, hearts on your, warm-blooded human beings are attached to those numbers. And the same goes for followers. I think, and I said this to her too, I would rather have a really engaged audience of a small number than reach 100,000 followers on Instagram when 75% of them have no clue what I do and it will never translate into money or transactions or me helping them.
Yeah.
So this is what she said about the souls and the hearts. And I was like, oh, that's really good.
That is really good. And I love how Well, I was going to say, I love how you were talking earlier about taking sales out of your vocabulary. It's like, we're not even going to use that word. It's not an
Oh,
option. We have to come up with some synonyms or something, but you
yeah.
cannot say the word sales. It is stripped from
Oh,
your vocabulary because
because
it does challenge you.
well, it has such a bad connotation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you say the word sales and most everybody goes, oh, and
Yeah.
it's because of all the snake oil things and all the people that have been sleazy with us but wait, there's more. And you know what I mean? And all the scam stuff that's that goes around, and it just makes people fearful. And so let's just call it something else.
Yeah.
Let's call it building a relationship. Let's call it making a connection. Let's call it sharing and learning and seeing where you can be of service, because that's what sales is.
Right.
And that's where the success is going to come from.
I love that. I love the connection, the networking, and just being super intentional with being like, I love the humans and the hearts and the souls. It's so beautiful. And it's absolutely a way, like it immediately sounds so different when you think about the number of people downloading your thing or watching your thing or following you. Like it's just, it brings a levity to it that's like, oh, right. We needed a reminder of this is what the social aspect of social media is about. And that connection can help you so, so much.
Right. I mean, we're not just collecting people out here.
Yes, exactly.
We should not be just raking them in like sheep. We're not herding sheep.
I love that so much. We are not absolutely like not herding sheep. I love how you said that. Well, I wanted to go back to a point that you and I had talked about before we started recording. And I told you, I was like, Tracy, so many people on my list, or my list. See, now I'm like caught up in my list, my subscribers, so many souls that listen to this podcast is what we're going to say. They struggle with selling in that this is not their main thing. You and I have a business background. We have marketing like chops. Like we have, cut our teeth on so many different, trial and error and fails and ups and downs of our journeys. But for the people that are listening that are saying, okay, I want to use my podcast. I want to use my email list. I want to use my content to sell, but I don't know how to sell, or I feel bad for selling, or I feel like this is free. I shouldn't sell. I shouldn't do the thing. And they don't really know where to get started. What advice would you have for them?
That's an excellent question. And it goes back to what we talked about, selling without selling. And so when it comes to a podcast, the call to action is very important. And well, let me back up for a second. So it also kind of goes back to how dare I not share? So if I encounter you out on the street and you are completely dehydrated and I've got a bottle of water, I need to give you my bottle of water, right? Not sell it to you, but give it to you, be of service. And so I want people to start thinking about that of how dare I not share my information, my gifts and talents, because that there are people, souls, hearts listening and subscribing to their email list that they can help. And so on the podcast, when you're giving value, it is absolutely okay to then transition into something really easy. Like if you're loving this content and you feel like for me, if you're loving this content and you've been looking for a great coach to hire for one-to-one work, reach out and book a free info call with me. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we're a good fit for each other. That is sort of a soft sales approach for me. It feels better when I say it that way than, hey, I'm the answer. I'm the coach you need to hire. Come, just sign up for my one-to-one services. Click on this link. That feels gross.
Yeah.
But if I say, let's see if we're a good fit for each other. By any chance, are you looking for your next coach? Or I know one of your podcasters is a doula and offers midwife services. And so that's an easy transition too. Hey, if you're learning from this content and you're interested in what I do and how a doula works and how it would fit into your birth plan, book a free info call with me, or download my checklist for how to know if a doula is a right fit for you. And so you're giving them something where they're either going to book the call or they're going to land on your email list. And if they book the call, that's your opportunity, like we talked about, to listen to that other person, because they're going to tell you exactly what they need. And then you can say, you know what, based on everything you're saying, I think we're an excellent fit for each other. And if you think we are too, I'd love to take the next step, which is talk about how, we can work together.
Yeah.
And it just sort of, once you start practicing it, how to say it, it becomes part of you. And if you just focus on, I'm going to find out what this person needs so that I could potentially change their life. That's how, to me, that's how you overcome that sales roadblock. But on the podcast, you want to do a good call to action. And that's what I do with my live videos that I do every week, is a call to action. And then on social media, again, you want to have a call to action of, sometimes you do need to be as blunt as, hey, this is the result I got for my client. If you would like to have a 5-figure launch, let's talk about how this could work for you too. Book a free info call. Sometimes we do have to kind of put on our big girl pants and just tell people, look, this is what I've done for these people. I can do the same thing for you. Book an info call or contact me and let's talk about it.
Yeah. I was just thinking yes, that 100% helps. But I was just thinking about the immediate question, because I feel like a version of that is what we've talked about on the podcast. And the next immediate question, because I get this question all the time, and it's a version of exactly what you just said. And then the next immediate question is, yeah, but how much is too much? Tracy, how much is too much? Because on the podcast, do I do this in every episode? Do I do this in every other episode? Do I do this, twice a month? It's like everyone, and this goes back to the intentional, talking to humans and talking to people. People want to plug it into a formula and it spits out this is the path to $1 million. I feel like that's what everyone wants. So what would you say to that question to someone that's like, well, how often do I do this? And is it necessary in every single piece of content that we create?
So from my opinion is, in every single piece of content we create, and you know this because you teach the spider web technique. So in every single piece of content we create, we need to send that person to the next thing they need to do with us. And I love the way you teach it. It's like, okay, if you're already on my email list, okay, check off that box. Krystal's on my email list now. She's one of the souls on my list. And so I send you an email. I need to think to myself, what's the next thing I want you to do? Is it book an info call? Is it join my free Facebook group? Is it listen to my latest podcast episode? So that you stay, as you teach, caught up in the spider web of my content to deepen that know, like, and trust factor. So for me, I teach that we need a call to action on everything. Now, sometimes a call to action is for engagement. I'll post a quote graphic. I could say, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere by Krystal Profit. And that would be my quote graphic. And then in the copy, I could say something about how we all think, we're going to go from 0 to $1 million in the first month in our business. And it's so frustrating to start at 0, but we all have to start somewhere, da, 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 da. And the call to action on that could be, tell me how you feel about starting out on something. Did you feel this way too? That's a call to action. That is a way to engage your audience without asking them to do anything, but staying connected with them and deepening that know, like, and trust factor. But then the other calls to action need to be something that's either going to grow your email list or lead to them booking a call or checking out your program, getting on your wait list. And how much is too much is really hard to answer, because what I'd love to say is trust your gut. But for those introverts whose gut is saying, I'm not going to do this at all, that's not going to work.
I just immediately saw someone saying, oh, I don't have to do it at all. Then that's what my gut is screaming.
Right. Because my barometer, I can trust my gut on it. When I start to feel like I'm being a little too pitchy, then I'm like, okay, Tracy, dial it back a little bit. But that's because, I know that I'm still going to do it. Yeah. So for those in the audience that are like, they don't want to do it at all.
Yes.
What if they started with 2 times a week on social media? What if they started with, if they have 4 podcasts a month, what if they started with 2 podcast episodes per month? What if we baby stepped this thing and got their feet wet and got them used to it? Because the more you do this, the more conversations you have with people that lead to sales, the more it has become a part of you, you're going to get comfortable with it. You're going to find your right words. You're going to find your right phrasing. You're going to find all the ways that feel good to you. But until you get started and try, you're not going to know what those words are and that phrasing is and all of that. I've got you and I talked about how I make lots of connections in the DMs on a daily basis. In fact, like today, I'm in Facebook DM jail because I've had too many DMs and Facebook said, no more Tracy Beavers. And I'm like, I'm just having conversations with people. But, but it took me a while to find my footing in the DMs because it felt weird. I was like, I'm used to meeting people in person. And now I got to talk to them through this little box with some words and some emojis. But the more I did it, and this, the more you exercise, the more you run, the more you meal prep, the more you do anything, the better and better you're going to get at it. So what if we just baby stepped them into it? And just did a couple episodes a month.
Yeah. And I love that you said that because that's exactly the thing that I was hoping you would say is it's not a formula. It's not a do this and you're going to, hit this target. It's really the going with your gut and understanding. And this is specifically what I've told people before. It's like, your audience. Like Tracy doesn't know your audience. I don't know your audience. So we can't tell you specific, like you're the one that's going to have to make those decisions and you may mess up and that's okay. You'll see. And I've actually gone back into my podcast and I can see in my stats where I was having like a bunch of promotions or I was talking about a lot of things it was an affiliate launch and it was things that I don't typically cover on regular episodes. And I was like, oh, I saw a huge dip in my numbers for like a 30-day period. And I went back and looked and I was like, oh, that's why I need to have a new approach going forward. I didn't beat myself up about it. I didn't sit there and say, oh, you're a failure. Oh my gosh. But is there something that you did you ever have really bad sales advice or did you have a mentor along the way that they were like, Tracy, just do this one thing and you'll what is the worst bad advice you've ever gotten for sales?
It's been so much.
So much.
There was this one person that was almost like the but wait, there's more guy.
Yeah.
And the just so salesy and pitchy and aggressive. And the worst sales advice I ever got. Oh, you'll love this. Okay. So when I first started building business, when I decided to leave corporate, I built 3 businesses alongside my full-time job because I was determined to get the heck out of there. Yeah. One was the coaching. Well, 4 actually. One was also, I'm still a consultant for the University of Arkansas Small Business Development Center. And then I had 2 small network marketing companies. Well, I will not name those companies. They were great. They were awesome. They got me where I needed to be. But one of them, and this was years ago, the method was make a list of 200 people and take this message, copy this message and paste it into the DMs for 200 people. And I literally, I could kick myself because I looked at that message and I thought, that doesn't sound anything like me. Second, this feels gross, but this came from people who were having 5-figure months with this company. They were earning the cars. They were earning you know what I mean? They were successful. Yeah. And I thought, okay, I've never built in the online space. I didn't even have the internet going through college. What do I know? I thought maybe this will work. Worst ever. I burned so many bridges. I'm surprised there were people that were still speaking to me after that. Oh. And I finally learned that was a really good lesson for me to learn that I needed to follow me. Mm-hmm. And so from then on, I built my business in a different way than everybody else in that company. And I was just as successful as they were, but I got there in a way that felt good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the worst advice I ever got. Yeah, boy.
Oh my God.
Apparently I blocked it out of my brain. It took a minute for that to come back.
But I love that you brought it back and you're just like, you own it as like, it was a terrible experience, but I learned so much. I think that those are the lessons that we don't forget because you will never repeat that mistake ever again. It's just one of those that even if it comes into your peripheral as like an ad and someone else is saying that, you're like, oh my gosh, do not do this. Like, shout it from the rooftops. Absolutely. It's a terrible way. Don't do it. burn all the
And if
bridges.
anybody listening is somebody that I DM'd that way, I just apologize now. And could we
So sorry.
mend fences and be friends, please?
Oh my gosh.
Because I'll have my students ask me, can you just tell me what to say? And I'm like,
yes.
I can. However,
Yeah.
then you need to tweak it and make it yours.
Yeah.
I can help you, but this has to be your words.
Yes. Because I don't understand, and I feel like we could do a whole episode just on bad sales scripts because I had the same thing. I had a job. I was working for a gym. I lasted a whole 7 days. Okay. 7 days right before January too. And the manager told me, he was like, I think it was a week after Thanksgiving. He was like, if you can just hang on until January, like January's it, you're going to be overflowing with signups and all these people coming in. But I was reading this script. I had my leads list. It was like 50 people. They're like, well, here, these people, they left their name, call them. And so I was calling them, Tracy, like every day when I went in. And I was like, well, I hit my 50. I did my calls and they were like, we'll call them again. And I was like,
oh God,
you want me to call them again? And there wasn't like texting or anything. So it was legitimately, I got hung up on so many times. I'm sure I was on a blocked list. And then they were like, oh, and go to the mall across the street where it explicitly says no soliciting, no selling anywhere. And I want you to hand out flyers. And the guy that took me, my trainer that day, was like, we're not really supposed to do this, but what I'll do is you do that. And I was like, so go back to the gut. Like you have to go with your gut. Like everything inside of every cell in my body was screaming, don't do this, run the other way. And finally,
did you use your real name when you were making those calls, or did you make up a fake name?
I used my real name. I didn't know any difference. It was like 100%. It was me. I was very naive and I was like, oh, I could totally do this. I was an athlete in high school. I could do sales at a gym. I could absolutely, oh my gosh, it was awful, awful, terrible. So yes, all of our PTSD, now we're just in a therapy session about bad sales. So this is a whole other topic for another conversation, another day. We'll put a pin in that. But Tracy, this has been so helpful. And I know that you have an upcoming session where you're going to walk people through some of your best selling techniques, but can you just talk about some of the successes that you've had in building your online business and some of the things that people can expect?
Oh, you mean in the masterclass?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the masterclass that's coming up starts October 12th. You can go to tracybeavers.com/masterclass to grab your spot. And I'm teaching 4 simple strategies that you can use to grow your email list without paid ads and without creating a truckload of lead magnets. The sales that we've talked about all along come from those people on your email list 9 times out of 10. They're not going to come from a massive social media following. We don't have any control over the algorithm. We don't have any control over if your best friend sees your post or not. Zero control. But what we do have control over is having those people want to join our email list and be a heart on our list, a subscriber, so that we can share more of ourselves and more of our value and make more sales that way, deepening that know, like, and trust factor, because it all starts with the foundation of the email list. And so in the masterclass, I'm going to teach them 4 simple strategies that they can take home that very day. One of them is a lot of my clients ask me, they struggle with being consistent in making their social media content. And I know you hear this a lot too, because we get going and we get excited. And then 2 weeks in, we're exhausted and we're like, this stinks. Nobody's paying any attention to me. And they want to know how they can be consistent with it. Well, I've developed a strategy where I can teach you how to create 90 days of social media content topics in only 30 minutes. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to talk about how important it is for you to make sure your Facebook personal profile grows your email list. I'm going to show you the secret strategy to do that. Also, your Facebook business page. We're going to talk about Facebook groups, if having your own is right for you. And if it is, awesome. We'll talk about how that can grow your email list, because my free Facebook group grows my email list by hundreds of people every month. And it is such a joy because, as we've talked about, it's an easy yes. I'm not selling them anything. I'm just inviting them, an online entrepreneur, into my Facebook community where they can promote themselves anytime and they can get help and support on anything they need. And it feels great to me because I'm literally inviting them into a big cocktail party where, oh, you need help with your podcast? Okay, Krystal Profit is a member and she's over here and I'm going to tag her. Or, hey, you need help with that WordPress website? let me tag so-and-so because they're a WordPress expert. And then along the way, they get to know me too. And so, it does grow my list and it does grow my conversions, but it doesn't in a very heart-centered, warm, kind human being kind of way. So that's what we're going to talk about in Masterclass. I'm excited about it because they're going to walk away with stuff they can use that same day.
I love this so much. And I like every time you say hearts and souls now, like I'm thinking in emojis and like, it's making me so happy. It's making my heart all warm and fuzzy. So
you see all the little heart emojis
going to do, yes, like they're just going, it's like all the little hearts, like all the people. So I will have links to everything that is for Tracy's masterclass and her Facebook group. We're going to put all of that in the show notes, as well as other ways for you to connect with Tracy. But we have to transition. And I know you know this because you listen to the show, but we have to, I feel like you're cheating because we're going to go into our rapid fire questions. Okay. So I hope that you didn't prepare too much beforehand.
You know what? I should have, and I didn't, and I can kick myself.
Okay. Well, the first one is, what piece of advice would you give to a brand new podcaster?
Oh, wow. Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about with trusting yourself and your voice and your authentic way of being in the world, and not, and so this would go for somebody that's podcasting or somebody that's just starting out in the online space. It's so important. There's so much noise out there and there are so many opinions out there about there's an opinion about everything. A client or a student will ask me a question. I'm like, well, if you ask so-and-so over there, they're going to tell you this. If you ask so-and-so over there, they're going to tell you that. And so you got to just decide, how do I want to show up? What do I want my show to be about? What do I want what is my voice? And then trust that. That's going to help you not make some stupid mistakes that I made in the beginning.
Well, I think it's so special. Like, I feel like the title of this episode is going to be Trust Your Gut. Just trust your gut and go with your instinct.
Except if you're an introvert and you don't want to do sales, then you can't trust your gut. You need to call me, call Krystal. We'll help you, tell you what your gut's supposed to say.
Trust your gut, except you introverts. You need to talk to us. Okay, that's fantastic. So my next question is, what is the dream podcast you would love to be on? And who is your dream podcast guest you'd love to interview?
Okay. So the dream podcast that I would love to be on, I was kind of on, but not as a guest expert. And it would be Amy Porterfield's online marketing. Wait, no, online marketing made easy. Oh my God, my brain shut off halfway through that. I was like, because that I'm in her world just like you are. And she's been such a help and mentor to me that I would love to be a guest expert and talk to her about all things sales and email list building and all that stuff and just nerd out with her on that. And then for a podcast guest, I would love to have Amy when I actually have an actual podcast. What I have now, as you know, is a live weekly training in my Facebook group and my YouTube channel. And I did get to interview her recently for the promotion of Digital Course Academy, which was really exciting. But other than that, I think I've always loved Ed Milet. But then I would love to talk to Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes.
Yes.
I mean, how much fun would that be?
Oh my gosh. Because you're Tracy. Does that throw you off when they say Tracy all the time?
Yes. Every time Sean says Tracy, and I'm like,
he's talking to me.
It's like when you're in a big crowded room and you hear your name.
Yes.
And you go, wait a minute.
You're like, wait, like maybe you were halfway paying attention and they say for Tracy out there. Right. If you all have not listened to the show, you have to go listen to it. It's like a whole bit, like Sean's sister, her name is Tracy, and it's like it's a whole thing, but it's so funny. I hadn't thought about that.
And then you can see how his mom had the glass eye. It's so bad. And
the father that like abandoned him. Like
it's wrong.
It's so wrong and hilarious the way that they razz each other so much. Like it's why I love it. It's why I love it so much. So
yeah, it's hilarious. I'd like to, although it would be a runaway roller coaster of,
you would black out totally. I would black out.
Yeah. I don't get anything done. I wouldn't say a word.
Exactly. Okay. My last question is, do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
Oh, that is the third question. So I used to. Boy, was I good at it too in my 20s. Krystal, I was so good at it. But I'll tell you what sucked it right out of me was having kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll do it. And then that'll do it. And then when I was a single mom, so that's a story for another time, but I was married to the kid's dad for 12 years and then went through a very, of course, I don't know, a divorce. It's not nasty. But I was on my own with the kids for almost 4 years, and they were little.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking to myself, I don't care if the towels are even folded. They could be rolled in a ball as long as they're shoved in a cabinet. I don't care. Yes. And I don't care if your socks match. Are you wearing socks? Good, let's go. You know,
That's a win.
But it just, and you're eating the same lunch again today because you fixed your own lunch and yeah, okay, great. Let's go. You're going to eat the same lunch all year. My son wore his Spider-Man costume every day of 3-year-old preschool and until it ripped, and I had to keep sewing it back together. So that sort of got the perfectionism out of me. And I realized that being a perfectionist really wasn't all that much fun.
Yeah.
And it prevents you from moving forward. It truly does. It's like, it just stagnates you and you just can't, you're like paralyzed in it. And I see this in my clients and students, and I know you do too. It's like, they just really want to get it right. And what I've learned in this business is our businesses are never fully built. They are constantly evolving. Like, I thought I was going to build this online business and there it is. Isn't it pretty? It's done. Yay. I can go do something else. No, I'm not building a McDonald's franchise. I'm building an online business that's going to grow and evolve. So the finish line is always going to be moved. Mm-hmm. So I need to not try to be so freaking perfect, because what I start with isn't going to be what I end with.
Yeah.
You know? So that's a long way to say, no, I don't think I'm a perfectionist.
Oh, it's so good though. Like, layering in all those different pieces of your journey, I think is really helpful for people that do struggle with perfectionism, and knowing that the sooner they can let that go, that there's so many beautiful things on the other side of the mistakes, of the failures, of the trial and error, of the, terrible sales advice that we've both gotten, that we went down that road.
Messages that I've sent to 200 people.
Oh my gosh. Yes. There's so much to be learned. And I feel like we could have 4 spin-off episodes from this today, but we have to wrap this up, Tracy. And this was so incredible. So remind us one more time about your masterclass and where everybody can go to learn more about it.
Yeah. So go to tracybeavers.com/masterclass. And that's Tracy with a CY, TRACY, Beavers with an S on the end. And it'll be 4 simple strategies. You'll see that there. You can pick your date and time. Show up live. I've got a live bonus for you if you show up live and stick with me. And I try to be funny and humorous and lighthearted. So I hope to, make it worth your while and not make it so super stiff and boring like it's a college lecture or something like that. And then if they want to join me in my Facebook group, I would love, love, love it. It is a community of support and just kindness. And it's called Be a Confident Entrepreneur, Get Visible, and Grow Your Income. Everybody is welcome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we will have links to all of that. I'm part of Tracy's Facebook group, and I love how you show up consistently for those lives. And you were there, you were adding so much value. Going back to the very beginning of this, when we talked about value and offering so much, you are so giving and you're so supportive of the online entrepreneur community. So thank you so much for everything that you do and for joining us here on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Krystal. This was really, really fun.
Wasn't that so good? Man, I was taking notes as I was re-listening to our whole conversation, because at the end of the day, one of the things that I really realized is the difference between people that can sell and have higher conversions and have just a more profitable overall business is a difference of mindset. And I think Tracy, we've talked a few times about how we've crossed paths in the last 12 months. And one of the things that draws me to her is her willingness to help. Do you hear? I didn't say her willingness to sell and try to convert people, her willingness to help. I can feel it. And I loved all the different metaphors we used about hearts and souls and just humanizing the experience of our businesses and our content, because that mindset shift, it just makes all the difference. When I look at my numbers for everything, for subscribers, for followers, for downloads, for whatever it is, and I think about those are actual people that I get to add value to them, it changes everything. And I know that Tracy has, her upcoming masterclass. I want you to go join, go grab it. There's going to be a link in the show notes. So go check it out for today's episode. But I want you to go and follow Tracy. Go get in her free Facebook group and just get in her orbit, because at the end of the day, the thing that I have really valued about connecting with her is, again, seeing someone else demonstrate how to add value and add value again and again and again. And people are just drawn to her. They are drawn to that. And if you start instilling those same values and principles of offering value to your audience, the same thing will happen to you. That attraction just naturally comes from you offering service, being a supportive anchor in someone else's journey. And I want you to go learn from Tracy and how you can do that. So again, go sign up for her masterclass. You're going to find it in the links for today's episode, but this was so much fun. And I just keep thinking about how being direct and being more assertive and asking for what we want is something that all of us can get better at. So I encourage you to find people just like Tracy that can help you be more confident when you're asking. You're making that ask, whatever it is, whatever you're selling. If you're just trying to get people to sign up for your lead magnet, find a way to feel more confident behind it, because that will lead to more success in the future. But that's all I have for you today. So make sure you are subscribed or following wherever you are listening to today's episode. And you know what? I haven't done this in a while. Why don't you leave us a review? If you are listening to this and you have found value in today's episode or any other episodes of the Profit Podcast, I want to hear from you. What other content do you want to hear on the show? Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, wherever you're listening, and leave us a review. I would be so appreciative, so grateful to hear what you think about today's episode and the podcast in general. But as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Krystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Krystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.